This is what happens when you strap a nuclear bomber's engine to a set of train tracks. Past 180 decibels, the bridge began to melt. This is why the loudest engine ever built was effectively banned in 48 states. In the 1950s, Union Pacific did not want a locomotive, they wanted a weapon to conquer the brutal Sherman Hill grade. General Electric's answer was a rolling power plant that used jet engine technology from the B-36 Peacemaker. It was a machine that produced 8,500 horsepower and a sound so terrifying it could be heard for miles before the train arrived. But the big blow was not just loud, it was a thermal nightmare. Its exhaust fired out at 850 degrees Fahrenheit and 150 miles per hour, cooking birds out of the sky and melting the asphalt off overhead bridges. By 1962, the city of Los Angeles had seen enough, enacting an unprecedented ban on a freight train for the crime of its own roar. Why did the world's most powerful engine become a 200-ton liability that the law eventually had to silence? Let's cut through the noise and lay out the verified data of the machine that was too loud for the planet. The Union Pacific Gas Turbine locomotive labeled GTEL-3 produced 8,500 horsepower. This number is not a myth. It is stamped on the General Electric design sheets, the dynamometer charts, and the Union Pacific test logs. The turbine ran at 6,500 revolutions per minute. It could pull a train weighing over 8,000 tons up a mountain grade without stopping. The exhaust blasted out at 850 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hotter than most industrial furnaces. The jet stream left the pipe at 150 miles per hour. The wind was strong enough to knock a grown man off his feet if he stood too close. These figures come from pitot tube readings and thermocouple arrays checked by NIST-calibrated equipment. The sound was measured at 120 decibels plus near the nose. In some field tests, the meter hit 130 decibels at 3 meters. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, known as OSHA, lists 120 decibels as the threshold where pain begins. This engine screamed at a level that could rupture eardrums. The locomotive itself weighed more than 200 tons. It was a rolling power plant. The fuel it burned was Bunker C. This was not diesel. Bunker C is a black, tar-like sludge. It must be heated just to flow through a pipe. It was cheap. It was full of vanadium. When burned, vanadium turns into a chemical that eats metal. Every hour the turbine ran, the blades faced a slow chemical attack. Pitting, thinning, rot from the inside out. The numbers are not exaggerations. The 8,500 horsepower rating came from torque transducers and brake horsepower equations. The 850 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust was checked by thermocouples. The 150 miles per hour jet was confirmed with pressure sensors. The 120 decibels plus noise was logged with a Bruel and Kier microphone. This was not just a loud train, it was a machine that screamed, burned, and corroded. The bridge melting was not a fluke, it was a warning sign. A system pushed past what metal, asphalt, and biology could bear. But the real reason for the locomotive's end was not the noise, it was the fuel. The monster's own blood carried the seeds of chemical rot. Sherman Hill is a wound in the earth. 30 miles of rail climb from Laramie to the crest near Cheyenne. The grade is 1%. In the steepest stretch, it hits 1.35%. This is not a gentle slope, it is a barrier. In the 1950s, Union Pacific's board sat in closed rooms and read the numbers. The old steam giants, big boys, were breaking. Diesels overheated, crews filed reports, trains stalled, the bottleneck was real. Freight tonnage kept rising. The line could not keep up. Board minutes from 1954 record the words, "Current power envelope does not meet forecast." The answer was not more engines. It was not more track. The answer was a new kind of power. The board sent a request to General Electric. They asked for a locomotive that could pull 8,000 tons up Sherman Hill without help. The engine would need to run at full throttle for hours. It would need to survive the altitude, the cold, the dust, and the relentless climb. General Electric's engineers did not start with a locomotive, they started with a jet. The B-36 Peacemaker bomber used the J-47 axial flow turbojet. The GE turbine for Union Pacific borrowed its compressor blade layout from the J-47. The design sketch, dated 1956, overlays the jet's compressor stages onto the new turbine housing. The core was aviation DNA, but the goal was torque, not thrust. The turbine's shaft was built to drive a generator, not a propeller. The heat recovery system was adapted from the B-36 water injection afterburner. The result was a hybrid, part jet, part rolling power plant. The first prototype arrived in 1957. It was not enough. The board wanted more. In 1958, the GTEL-3 appeared. The specification called for 8,500 horsepower. The target was not a guess. It was calculated from the grade, the weight, and the friction. Every 1,000 tons of train on a 1% grade needs about 200 horsepower to keep moving. The GTEL-3 could pull a 40-car train up Sherman Hill without stopping. The fuel was Bunker C. It was chosen because it was cheap. Bunker C is a black, sticky sludge. It must be heated before it can flow. It is full of vanadium. When burned, vanadium turns into a corrosive chemical. The turbine blades would be attacked from the inside. The engineers knew the risk. The economics won. The monster was born out of need, not out of pride. The bridge did not melt by accident. The noise did not just bother people. The system was pushed past what steel and stone could handle. The power was real. The consequences were not a surprise. They were a result. Let's cut through the noise and lay out the verified data of the machine that was too loud for the planet. The Union Pacific maintenance log for July 11, 1960 reads like an autopsy. Entry: Riverdale Underpass. Time: 3:42 p.m. Observed surface deformation. Pavement temperature 210 degrees Fahrenheit. Source: turbine exhaust. Action: crew dispatched. Repair scheduled. The handwriting is tight, no emotion, just numbers and facts. 210 degrees Fahrenheit is not a typo. That is well above the softening point of asphalt. The jet was not just hot, it was sustained. The log notes a duration of overpass exposure of 37 seconds at full throttle. The turbine did not idle past. It screamed. The exhaust hit the bridge deck in a single focused blast. The result was a blackened, rippled scar. The log does not mention the birds. It does not mention the smell. It lists only the temperature and the repair order. The next line reads, surface repaired. Crew advised to monitor future passes of GTEL-3. Possible need for heat shield. There is no mention of a one-time accident. There is no theory about what happened. The record treats the event as a repeatable outcome, a system effect. The bridge melted because the exhaust was too hot for the world it moved through. The log is a confession. The engine's power was not contained. The environment was not protected. The data is cold. The numbers do not care. But the people who wrote them understood. The machine burned hotter than the materials around it could survive. The record is time-stamped, signed by the road crew foreman. It is institutional proof. The bridge did not fail. The system did. The monster did what it was built to do. The world was not ready for it. Ogden, Utah. The sound hit first. It was not a whistle or a rumble. It was a scream, the kind of noise that makes skin crawl. People in the houses near Riverdale Road stopped what they were doing. Windows shook in their frames. Plates rattled. The Union Pacific turbine was passing under the bridge. A maintenance worker stood by the underpass. He did not need a thermometer to know the air was wrong. He felt the heat on his face, not warm, hot. He looked down. The pavement under his boots was soft. He pressed with his heel. The blacktop gave way. The surface was rippled. It looked like a pond after a stone hits. A photographer from the railroad snapped a picture. The image shows a smooth patch of asphalt, shiny and warped. There are dark streaks where the exhaust hit. In the corner, a small shape. A bird. It fell from the sky, cooked by the blast. The worker wrote a note that said, pavement temperature over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Asphalt soft. Birds dead on deck. He was not alone. A mother waiting at the bus stop covered her child's ears. The child started to cry. The train was already gone, but the noise stayed in the air. People complained to the city. Some said the bridge was melting. Others said the ground shook. The railroad sent a crew to patch the road. They used a thicker mix. It melted again the next week. The maintenance log is careful. It lists the facts: pavement temperature, repair time, crew dispatched. It does not mention the birds. It does not mention the smell of burning tar. It does not mention the fear. The photo is still in the archive. The scar on the bridge lasted for years. The memory lasted longer. The numbers in the log are cold. The people who lived through it remember the heat, the noise, and the way the world seemed to bend when the engine passed. This was not a one-time accident. It was a warning. The record of the ban is not a rumor. It is not a story passed around by rail fans. It is a matter of law. Los Angeles Ordinance Number 62-245, adopted December 31st, 1962, begins with the city engineer's report. The text is cold. It reads, "No turbine-driven freight locomotive or any engine emitting exhaust at a temperature exceeding 800 degrees Fahrenheit or producing a sound level greater than 120 decibels. Weighted at a distance of 50 feet shall be operated within the city limits." Section 3 of the ordinance sets the boundary. Section 4 sets the penalty. Each violation is a separate offense. The numbers are not guesses. They are limits set after measurements. The city engineer's log cites field readings: the GTL's 850 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust, the 120 decibels plus noise. The ordinance does not mention the bridge. It does not mention birds or asphalt. It lists only temperature, sound, and distance. The law is a wall. It does not care about the reason. The clause is final. The engine's power is not up for debate. The city draws a line. The monster is not allowed to cross. The phones at City Hall did not stop ringing. Residents from Riverdale, Ogden, and Los Angeles called in with the same complaint. The noise was not just loud, it was a force. Plates shook in kitchen cabinets. Windows rattled in their frames. Children covered their ears and cried. Old men wrote letters to the editor. The Los Angeles Times ran a headline, "Turbine Trains Under Fire for Jet-Like Roar." A mother on Riverdale Road said, "It is like a jet landing in my living room. The walls vibrate. My baby screams." Another resident told the paper, "You cannot hear your own voice when the train passes." The dog hides under the bed. The city council meetings filled with people holding petitions. Some asked for sound barriers. Others wanted the trains banned. A letter from a school principal reported children missing lessons because the turbine passed during reading hour. The local paper printed a photo of the scarred bridge. The caption read, "Asphalt melts again." The railroad set up a complaint line. The logbook filled with calls. One man wrote, "This is not progress. This is punishment." The press archives record the mood: fear, anger, fatigue. The monster's scream did not fade when the train left. It lingered in the air and in memory. The public outcry was not a rumor, it was a record. The voices are still there, stamped in newsprint and city files. This was not just a machine problem, it was a human one. Let's cut through the noise and lay out the verified data of the machine that was too loud for the planet. The blade failures were not an accident, they were evidence. The bunker C fuel, thick as tar, carried vanadium in every gallon. When the turbine burned, vanadium turned to vapor. The vapor hit the hot blades and it did not cool and it did not pass through. It stuck. It formed a thin, glassy film of vanadium pentoxide. That film did not protect, it attacked. A metallurgist in the General Electric lab put it bluntly, "Vanadium eats nickel alloy alive." The turbine blades were made from inconel. They were built to stand up to 850 degrees Fahrenheit. But vanadium did not care. It turned the blade surface brittle. It opened tiny pits. Each pit grew deeper with every hour at full throttle. Lab tests on similar alloys showed pitting depths of 0.1 millimeter after just 500 hours in a 50 parts per million vanadium atmosphere. Some bunker C batches tested as high as 120 parts per million. The damage was not uniform, it was patchy. Some blades came out with smooth spots, others looked like the surface of the moon. The cold report said, localized thinning. Brittle phase formation. Risk of catastrophic rupture increases with exposure. A photo from a service check shows a blade with a cratered edge. The metal is blackened and rough. The pit is deep enough to catch a fingernail. The lab report lists the numbers: pitting depth, loss of cross-section, no emotion, just measurements. The monster did not just scream and burn, it rotted from the inside. The bridge melted, the air shook, but inside the turbine, the real damage was silent. The fuel that kept it alive was the same fuel that killed it. The noise was not the real reason for retirement. The chemical rot was. Let's cut through the noise and lay out the verified data of the machine that was too loud for the planet. The maintenance ledger for the Union Pacific Gas Turbine locomotive reads like a slow-motion disaster report. Year by year, the numbers climb. In 1960, a full turbine blade set cost $12,500. By 1961, the price had jumped to $15,300, then $21,700 in 1962. In 1963, the number hit $28,900. Each set lasted fewer hours. Each repair took longer. The monster ate money as fast as it ate metal. The corporate memo from April 30th, 1964 is clinical. Scrap authorization approved. Units to be sold for $45,000 each. Reason: unsustainable maintenance expense, fuel-induced corrosion, regulatory restrictions, no emotion, no regret. The numbers speak. The blade replacement costs alone crossed $1.2 million by the end. That is 4 times the original price of the locomotive. The board signed off. The monster was not just loud, it was bleeding the company dry. The cost escalation chart is a straight line upward. Each data point is a warning. The blade alloy could not survive the vanadium in Bunker C fuel. The chemical rot was not a theory, it was measured in pit depth and lost cross-section. The engine's own blood was poison. The scrap order was not a choice, it was a surrender. The real reason for retirement was not the noise, it was the fuel. The monster's heart corroded from the inside. Let's cut through the noise and lay out the verified data of the machine that was too loud for the planet. The bridge melted. Not from myth, but from 850 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust and failed thermal design. Its 8,500 horsepower scream hid a slower killer, Bunker C fuel, thick with vanadium, corroding the turbine from within. Noise was only the surface. Chemical rot made extinction certain. What else are we still ignoring?